Hi, this is Dan. My channel is Justice Forever One, coming at you again with another Rockman video. This video was requested by some YouTubers, and this is because my last video called Rockman Audio Setup was not accurate as far as how to set up a Rockman rack properly. So this video is going to replace the one that I have right now, and it's going to be basically the same version as the last one. It's going to be a detailed version on how to link all the modules together. And as you can see, I got some new gear, which will change the setup a little bit and how everything is set up. You can see the speakers in the background, and I've got American Audio, power amp, and the power conditioners, and this EQ on the very bottom, the Digitech MEQ Dual 14. That's new, so I'm going to try and make this video as clear and accurate as I can, so it'll be a good reference for everyone to base their Rockman racks off of. And I'm also going to go over which cables I use and so forth. So let's get right into it here. Alright, step one, what I like to do is just to plug the guitar right into the Rockman rack. I'm using your standard monster cable. I think it's like a 12-foot cable. So I'm going to plug this into the guitar. And then from the guitar, my monster cable will go right directly into the sustainer here. Alright, now we get to have some fun. Now we get to finally set up the Rockman rack. And what I would recommend doing first is just unplug all the Rockman gear from your power source. Mine is at the very top. It's that Furman power conditioner. Just unplug all that. It just makes it a lot easier to work with. And also I just want to point out that there are hundreds of variations to set up Rockman gear. It just depends on which modules you have and what kind of gear you have. But I figured, as long as you can get the basic concept down of how to set this all up, then you can deal with the variations later. So this is the back of the rack, and I'm going to start inserting some cables. Let's start. Alright, now what we're going to start doing is creating the chain from module to module. And as far as cabling goes, what I would recommend is getting some color-coded cables like these here. It makes it a lot easier to see just where cables are going to and from. So these are maybe a foot and a half color-coded cables, and I would highly recommend these. These are great. I'm also going to be using some just your basic cheap patch cables. This is a Nutric cable. It's about, I don't know, a foot and a half long. But that's really all you need. You just need a foot and a half. That should be enough to reach. So let's start the chain. We're going to go from the output from the sustainer to the input on the EQ. And I just want to point out that here, this is the sustainer, and this is the EQ with the 21 on it. This EQ will be the post EQ. There's always a pre and a post EQ for the Rockman rack. And this Digitech EQ on the bottom will be the pre EQ, okay? So this will be pre, and this EQ will be post. So the output, let me get my flashlight here. The output from the sustainer will go to the input on the EQ. Alright, now we're going to go from the output from the Rockman EQ to the input on the Smart Gate. And I just want to point out that I'm using all mono cables. You can use either stereo or mono, but really all you really need for the Rockman gear is just mono cables. Alright, now from the output from the Smart Gate to the input on the distortion generator. Okay, now from the output from the distortion generator, I'm using a 15-foot Nutric cable, and that's because I'm going to go from the distortion generator to my delay pedal. My delay pedal is, here it is, it's a MXR carbon copy analog delay pedal. So I would take that 15-foot cable, run it to the front of my rack and where my ground control is, and basically you're just working with more inputs and outputs. So output from the distortion generator to the input on the delay pedal. And then I would run another 15-foot Nutra cable from the output from my delay pedal. And then I decided to go into my chorus unit, okay, the Rockman stereo chorus. That would go in here, like that. Alright, now we're almost done completing the chain. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to run 2 3-foot Nutra cables from the left and right outputs from the stereo chorus, and that would go directly into my power amp. So the I don't know if you can see that, but the mono out there, the mono out always stands for left. Okay, so that's left, and then on the right side is the direct out. So here, let me show you what I'm doing here. All right. So that's left. Mono out is left. All right, and here's my right cable. So I would go in there. Alright, so what we're going to do now is plug the left and right cables coming out of the stereo chorus into the left and right channels on the power amp. Now, you have to look at the front of your power amp to determine which side is left, which side is right. In this case, if I were to look at the front of this power amp, the volume knob on the left just happens to correspond with channel A. Okay, so if we've determined that this is the left cable coming out of the stereo chorus, out of the mono, stereo chorus, then it's got to go into channel A because channel A is left, and that goes for the right cable. Okay, so this cable is coming out of the direct out from the stereo chorus, and again, if we were to look at the front of this power amp, the volume knob on the right would correspond with channel B. Okay, so that's where we want to put this cable. So we're just, basically from the output from the stereo chorus, if we're running it stereo, we just basically have to match up with, all the lefts with the lefts and all the rights with the rights to make it true stereo. Now I'm going to attach the speakers, and again we have to look at which side is left, which side is right. You want to plug your left speaker into whichever channel is left. So if we've determined that channel A is left, then our left speaker wants to go, or needs to go into channel A. As far as cabling, I'm using a 50-foot, what is this, like a Nutric heavy-duty speaker cable. Okay, so that's the left cable. Channel A is left. And then this would be the right side, or the right speaker, going to channel B, because channel B is right. There, just like that. Alright, now that our chain is all set up, what we need to do is now link the modules to the Midi octopus so we can control all of them through the Midi pedal. So I'm going to start with the sustainer. Let's see, we'll go from the channel to letter A, and then from the bypass on the sustainer to letter B, alright, now this is where our pre-EQ comes in. Okay, so we're going to go from the send in the sustainer, and then we're going to go to the input on, I think it's channel 1 on the Digitech EQ. Okay, and then from the output from channel 1 on the EQ, the Digitech EQ, we're going to go back to the sustainer, and then the effects loop will come back to, I decided to put it into the dist edge return slot. If you choose to put it into the all return, then the EQ will be audible through any channel that you select on the sustainer. Alright, I chose dist edge return because I just want the EQ to equalize the distortion channels. Alright, from the foot switch bypass in the Rockman EQ, I'm going to put that into F on the Midi octopus. And then from the bypass on the stereo chorus, that'll go into letter C. The the bypass on the distortion generator will go into E, and then the chorus on the stereo chorus will go into letter D, and there we have it. Okay, just a couple last steps here in regards to the Midi octopus. I've got a Midi cable here. It's about, I don't know, maybe 3 feet, and since I'm using the Digitech EQ, that's controlled via Midi. So basically, I have to go from the output, or it's labeled as through on the Midi octopus. So from the through on the Midi octopus, this Midi cable will go to the Midi input on the Digitech. Okay, and our MIDI pedal, from our MIDI pedal, it would go to the input on the Midi octopus. So I would use another MIDI cable. This is a much longer one. This is maybe 10-15 feet or something. You can get longer ones depending on how far away the MIDI pedal is. Alright, and just for demonstration purposes, from the input on the Midi octopus, the other end of the MIDI cable will go into the MIDI pedal.